My sermon today is based on the gospel. The title is On Spiritual Maturity and is drawn from the scripture that reads, "Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene." I want to share with you today some of the life of Edith Stein. She was born in Germany and grew up there and studied in Germany during the early 19 teens, right? 1911 to 1913. She earned a philosophical degree and passed her doctoral exam in 1916, earning a summa cum laude. She was born into a Jewish family, and by 1922, however, was drawn into the Christian faith and was baptized, received her first communion and confirmation. Soon after, she began teaching and then drawn more and more into the Carmelite order. She made her first profession of vows in 1933 and her final profession in 1938. She stayed from 1939 to 1942 in the Netherlands, and in 1942 she was arrested, deported, and a week later was killed in Auschwitz. In 1987 she was beatified in Cologne, Germany, and canonized in 1998 and declared co-patroness of Europe in 1999. She is a remarkable person, and I'd like to share you just some of her biographical information. During World War I, she earned a doctoral degree in philosophy with honors under the direction of her admired mentor Edmund Husserl, who founded the School of Phenomenology. She wrote her dissertation on the theme of empathy. She was one of the first women in Germany to earn a doctorate, and her brilliance proved such that Husserl had her as his assistant. In spite of her skills and her intelligence, she fought discrimination because of her gender and was denied numerous appointments at universities. Finally, she did receive an appointment as a Catholic pedagogical instructor in Münster, but was soon dismissed as a result of the anti-Semitic legislation imposed by the Nazi regime. Throughout her life, Stein's spiritual life was marked by an earnest quest. Gradually, she found herself questioning and ultimately abandoning her atheistic outlook. Eventually, she decided to receive her baptism in 1922 and then moved toward becoming a Carmelite nun. As a nun, even though she made perpetual vows, she too felt the pressure of Nazi anti-Semitism. Even though that she had become a Christian since she was born Jewish, her life was threatened in Germany. So then she fled in 1938 and lived with the Discalced Carmelite nuns in Holland during that time in a small town of Ech. In early April, in August of 1942, her and her sister Rosa, who was also a convert to Catholicism, were seized in a raid by the SS. They were transported from a camp in Holland to a camp to Auschwitz soon after. And as the author writes, radiating her inner strength and peace of spirit to all in the consecration camp, Edith Stein went to her death on August 9th, 1942, 1 week after her arrest in a gas chamber at the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp. Edith noted in a poem, and I'd like to share some of her writings around her writings on the cross. And I will share portions of that poem and also some of her reflection. To her, what was most important is the cross had no purpose of itself. It rises on high and points above. It is not merely a sign. It is Christ's powerful weapon, the shepherd's staff with which the divine David moves against the hellish Goliath. With it he strikes mightily against heaven's gate and throws it wide open. Then streams of the divine light flow forth and enfold all who are the followers of the crucified. In this poem, To Stand at the Cross, she reflects on Mary, the mother of Jesus. Today I stood with you before the cross and felt more clearly than I ever did that you became our mother only there. Even an earthly mother faithfully seeks to fulfill the last will of her son, but you became the handmaiden of the Lord, the life and being of the God-made man was perfectly inscribed in your life. As Stein noted, only being distanced from Christ could Mary grow fully spiritually. In that distance, she felt the separation, the longing, the growth. She longed to touch Jesus. She stood mere feet, maybe 6 feet from her son, and she longed to hold him in his hour of need, at his death. She longed to step across that divide, but was prevented by the Romans in that moment. She felt that deep desire in her and longed to be able to cross that divide. Another example of that longing can be felt by our plants, our seedlings, that at this time of year are following the path of the sun. They long for the sun's light. They bend toward it. Its stems and its leaves arc in a bending nature that tracks the orbit, the arc of the sun through the sky. It's that same longing that Mary had, the longing to be fed by the light, the longing to be fed by the love of Jesus, the longing to be made whole and to be fed in that way. We are like Mary and the seedling. We want to close the distance between us and Christ, but it is not ours to close. God closes the final distance. Between the death of Jesus and the new of the resurrection is a gap as well. 3 days had to pass. The pause teaches us about the patience of God. While we long to get to Easter morning, God patiently waits. The pause teaches us the value of anticipation, longing, and patience. We may want to rush experiences and events, but God doesn't. God values the fullness of experiences, including the awareness of longing and the desire for the end and new beginnings. God calls us to value each moment and let time wash over us. The death of Christ must affect us before the light of Easter restores us. Spiritual maturity involves patience, being with God in the good times and the bad times. Because of our spiritual maturity, we can treat all of life with respect. Things that can't be rushed shouldn't be. Shoots need time to grow. In time, leaves will unfold, the stem will climb, but all in good time. For us too, time allows for reflection and assessment. With patience, we can embrace experiences at all levels, including physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We want the COVID-19 pandemic to end immediately. If it did, lives would be saved and our lives could return to the way they were. But the disease won't be rushed. Time must pass, and with it, we must learn new ways to live and to be. Spiritual maturity involves the embrace of our feelings and the evaluation of our spiritual nature. During the next 2 days, I invite you to evaluate your spiritual self. Consider for yourself these spiritual qualities. How do you live in humility? How often do you offer mercy? Do you seek to forgive yourself and others? How often are you gentle, patient, and kind?